Okay, guys, I'm changing the book that I'm going to read. I was going to read Detectives in Togas, but I changed it to I Survived the Destruction of Pompeii because this actually happened. Pompeii was a city, it's just a little south of Rome. Remember, Vesuvius was, when we did the map of Italy, it was a volcano that's right by the city of Pompeii. So I'm going to read this instead. It's just a little easier to follow, I think, out loud. The other book has a lot of intricate characters, and I think it would have been a little much for you to follow just with auditory. So here we go. Chapter 1. In August 24th of AD 79. You guys remember AD, right? For after death? No, you guys know that is not right. AD. I hear you guys saying it. Anno Domini. Yeah, for in the year of our Lord. And we talked all about that. You should know AD is to the right of 0, right? The year 0. So, not BC, AD. 79, right? The city of Pompeii in the Roman Empire. Within hours, thousands of people would be dead. The entire city of Pompeii would vanish under more than 30 feet of fiery ash and stone. But first, it was a bright, sunny summer day. Shops bustled, kids played ball in a grassy field, gladiators readied for a bloody match. Well, I turned 2 pages. Here we go. Nobody yet knew that the mountain Vesuvius, which loomed over the city, was actually a deadly volcano. The mountain had been silent for centuries, a giant green triangle covered with farms and meadows and forests. It was impossible to imagine what lurked under the ground. Rivers of boiling magma, swirls of poisonous gases. Any moment, the mountain would erupt with devastating fury. 11-year-old Marcus was with his father, Tata. They shouldn't have been anywhere near Pompeii. They were escaped slaves, running for their lives from evil men. But then, boom, boom! With 2 shattering explosions, Vesuvius erupted. Thousands of pairs of eyes turned toward the mountain, staring in shock and terror. Black, billowing smoke and ash gushed out of the mountain's gaping mouth. Vesuvius roared like a furious beast, breathing smoke and flames into the sky. And then came an even bigger cloud, shooting out billions of hot, jagged rocks that rained down on Pompeii, filling fountains, crushing roofs, and pounding down on people as they tried to flee, screaming in panic. "The gods are punishing us! The world is ending!" Marcus and Tata knew they had to escape. Any minute, a flaming wave of ash and gases would rush down the mountain, burning everything in its path. But there were too many people in the streets, too many rocks falling from the sky. It was hard to breathe, almost impossible to see. And then there was the strange whooshing sound that came from above. "Look out!" Tata shouted. Marcus looked up just in time to see a massive, flaming boulder falling from the sky, a chunk of fiery rock from deep inside the mountain. It was heading right for them. Chapter 2. And this is the August 23rd AD. So this is an afternoon before what just happened. So let's see what had happened. Marcus walked along the dusty main street of Pompeii, carrying a smelly sack stuffed with his master's dirty laundry. It was early afternoon, and the street was packed with people. Shoppers sifting through bins of pomegranates and melons, weary slaves collecting water from the fountains, beggars holding out their grimy hands. A snake charmer dozed while his cobra peeked out of its basket, tasting the air with its flicking tongue. "Salve," Marcus said, a friendly Latin hello for the deadly reptile. If only he had a basket to hide in right now. But there were no good days for Marcus lately. But this day was sure to be more miserable than usual. It was broiling hot, and his ragged tunic, was soaked in sweat. Even worse, his master, Festus Julius, was expecting important guests from Rome this evening, friends of the emperor. This meant even more backbreaking work than usual for Marcus and the other slaves. For days they'd been scrubbing the villa so that the mosaic floors shined like diamonds, so that every silver bowl and goblet gleamed. The guests would arrive by chariot, men in flowing white togas, women in silk robes and with painted red lips, jewels flashing from every finger. Tonight there would be a great feast of roasted flamingo and wild boar, honey-baked mice stuffed with raisins and dates, and lobsters as big as cats. The guests would lounge on silken couches and gorge themselves until they threw up. And then, their stomachs empty, they would eat more. Ugh. Tomorrow, Festus would take them all to the gladiator fight at Pompeii's amphitheater. From front row seats, they would cheer as the warriors tried to stab one another to death with swords, spears, and daggers. People were coming from all over to see the spectacle, which featured Pompeii's champion fighter. He was a giant of a man who had lost an eye in one of his early battles. The injury had earned him the fighting name of Cyclops, after the one-eyed monster from the old Greek tales. Like almost all gladiators, Cyclops was a slave who was forced to fight, but he was one of the lucky few, still alive after many battles. Just thinking about these brutal tournaments horrified Marcus. Me too. Suddenly his whole body was shaking. But wait, it wasn't Marcus who was trembling. It was the earth beneath his feet. Marcus dropped his sack and braced himself against a stone fountain. A huge marble statue of the warrior Achilles looked down on him. Marcus wished he felt as brave as Achilles. But these tremors spooked him. For weeks they'd been shaking the city, putting cracks in the walls of Festus's villa, sending his spoiled dogs into fits of howling. Spoiled dogs. Look at this. There's a spoiled dog. Yeah, aren't you, Finn? The other spoiled dog escaped. I don't know where he went to. But anyway. All right. Get my camera set back up. Back to the reading. Where did I go? Spoiled dogs. Where are we? Usually the quakes were quick, ending in just a few seconds. Most people seemed to barely notice them. But this quake was more powerful than most. The ground shuddered and shook, harder and harder. Up and down the street, the sound of shattering glass and splintering wood and crumbling stone pounded Marcus's ears. Crash! Crack! Bang! Vendors cursed as their baskets of fruit and vegetables toppled. A bamboo birdcage fell and burst open, scattering a flock of tiny white birds into the dusty air. Barrels rolled wildly through the streets, gushing wine as red as blood. Marcus held tight to the fountain as the water inside it sloshed, splashing over the rim and soaking his tunic. And then he heard it, a creaking, just over his head. Marcus looked up just as the massive marble statue of Achilles came crashing down on top of him. All right, so that's chapters 1 and 2. There were a lot of vocabulary words we might talk about next time if you want to try to figure out what they are. Tunic, gladiator, there were some more. The market where he was. So you might think about those things. Do you know what they are? We'll talk about them next time. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.